Honey Sound Broadcasting, an affiliate of the Bilko Media Network.
We are now recorded. Or recording.
All right. Okay, so just for future reference, basically the subject of today's discussion is the game Bioshock Infinite. I have played the game and watched this movie version, and Bill has just watched this movie version.
I have only watched the movie version because I'm lazy and
Yes.
don't feel like playing through a 40-hour game, or however long it should take you.
Yes. It's about, I would say, I finished it about 16 hours. So if you sit down for like 2 or 3 days, you're going to be able to...
through it.
You'll blow through this game, yeah. So Bill, you just watched this last night.
Yes.
Let's start out with what do you like about the game, if anything?
Okay. Well, when I first heard of it, let's rewind a little bit. So when I first heard this game was coming out and I saw a little bit about what it is, I wanted to like this game. I liked the idea of this alternate reality, if you will, where like it almost looks like they're taking deep roots in religion and patriotism from like the colonial American times, and twisting it into a hammer and used to beat people down, I think is the correct phrase. So I like that aspect of it. Before seeing the movie last night, or the movie version last night, I wanted to like it because I like when they do that kind of stuff and turn it into this weird steampunk type reality where everything is, the same but different.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I like that aspect of it. But then that's pretty much where the liking ends, I would say.
I would agree. Mm-hmm. If there's one, is there one particular thing about this game that you like or you dislike the most? Or there are lots of things that you dislike?
There are definitely lots of things. Like, there are just so many questions I have, even after watching this, that I don't know, maybe is answered during the regular gameplay, but there were just so many things that just led me to be, like, wanting to pull my hair out, because none of it made any sense.
Okay.
And I didn't know what was going on half the time.
So, have you, I think there's a difference here between you and me, because when I finished this game, I for one had no real desire, to play it again to try to figure shit out.
Uh-huh.
And also, we have the internet now, so I just looked up, what is the Bioshock Infinite, timeline? What is the actual story behind this story?
Right.
So, I've been through that, and there is a sort of commonly accepted, you just Google Bioshock Infinite timeline, and you'll come across like 50 different versions of the same kind of thing.
But it gives you some background. Is that what you're saying? Because when I started watching this movie, it just threw you in, and that's one of the things I really didn't like about this, is it just threw you in and didn't tell you anything. And even though I'm supposed to be playing as this person, he already knows what's going on, but I sure don't, and they never tell you anything.
Yep. So, I mean, you have, I was going to ask you, have you gone, like, online and looked at, like, what this explanation is, or...
I have not. I have not done anything to the sort, because I figured you'd want to talk me through it.
Okay, alright, so let me give a brief rundown on, the Bioshock Infinite. I'm just going to pull up Bioshock Infinite timeline just to make sure that I don't, get anything egregiously wrong. So this is kind of one of my problems with this or really any media. If you have to if you have to like go and use an infographic to figure out what the hell went on,
Right.
That's a failure. That's a failure of storytelling.
There was a huge failure of storytelling in this game because there is none. Things just happen, and they just happen for seemingly no reason. And you are already, like I said, if there was at least some setup in the beginning to tell you why you're going on this boat and like the whole floating city deal, is that supposed to be like a secret? Like nobody down on the real Earth knows about this secret floating city, or does everybody know about this secret floating city in the sky?
The answer to that is everybody knows the secret of the floating city in the sky.
Okay, because for me, I got the impression that it was supposed to be some kind of secret that nobody down below even knew about it.
So one of the things that I do appreciate about this game is, like, I don't appreciate a lot of things about this game. One of the things I do appreciate is that, at least for the art direction, there's a lot of kind of minutia put in there. The problem is that, when you stack it all together, right, nothing foundationally makes sense. So, all the minutia just, I mean, it's window dressing, it's, frosting on a crap cake, But, okay, so let me just give you the basic rundown of this story, okay? So, this guy, Booker DeWitt, okay? Yes. He is born somewhere in the United States and goes into the army at what we can consider as a relatively maybe young age, or, I don't know. He looks like he's like 40, so, you can maybe assume that, there are dates given out here, so maybe I'll say 40 years ago he's born, from the time that you meet him, and you are introduced to him. He joins the army, participates in the Battle of Wounded Knee, which is a massacre of Native Americans by, I don't so say Union forces, but I mean, American soldiers, right? And this causes him so much grief that he decides to get baptized in some religion, some Christian denomination. He gets, put under the water, and now at this point, we have split into a two timeline scenario. Now, one of the problems with Bioshock Infinite is that it says that there are two timelines, or, there are two main timelines, but there are also lots of other timelines, because they really can't get from one place to the other. There's I'm getting my head of myself here. So basically, so take it as read. They're like, there are two outcomes, and only two outcomes, to Booker being baptized. In one outcome, he rejects the baptism, runs away, and stays Booker DeWitt. Right. In the other outcome, he renames himself Zachary Comstock, goes to the United States government, obtains shit tons of money to build a flying city, and happens to meet the female Lutece, who helps him somehow, some way, build this city in the sky. So already, he is by getting baptized, he has suddenly become like an influential Christian super genius that can. But in the other timeline, he becomes just a washed out bum, essentially,
right?
Who marries somebody and she dies, and he has a baby.
Right.
All right. The baby named Anna DeWitt. Now, in the alternate timeline, there's Comstock and his magical flying city and Lutece, and the Lutece woman manages to meet her twin in the timeline that Booker is in. Is this all right? It's so goddamn confusing.
No, that doesn't make any sense to me because I don't recall that piece where I guess Lady Comstock is what I know her as, because that's what they kept referring to her in the video.
Yeah, so here's the deal though. Like, Comstock is messing around with all this technology or whatever, and a side effect of that is it makes him sterile. So he wants to get a kid.
Okay.
But he doesn't go, and adopt somebody or something. He says, "Hey, look, you Luteces." So the Luteces, right? The two British people.
Oh, the twins.
The twins, right? So the male one is pulled from the universe. Is the Lutece version from the universe where Booker stays Booker. Okay, and the female one is from the version where Booker becomes Comstock. And so Comstock uses the Lutece's, reality whole portal field, right?
Yeah. Okay. That's starting to make sense.
To steal Anna DeWitt,
right, from an alternate reality.
From an alternate
Comstock.
reality.
Right.
Okay. So this kind of still even makes sense.
That makes sense. Yes.
They didn't do a good job of explaining it at all.
No.
Which is, I guess, I don't know. Anyway,
because the problem then is, does Comstock stay in that reality where he steals the kid? Because how is the Flying City in the reality that Booker is in?
Okay, so here we go. So I'm just trying to go over this chronologically.
Right.
So Booker sells his daughter to pay off gambling and booze debts to this mysterious Mr. Lutece, okay? And then that's what happens at the very end, right? Where you see them in the alleyway, and Comstock's grabbing his daughter, and she loses her pinky, right? So basically, at that point, the hole between the two realities is shut. On one side of it, you have Comstock, Anna DeWitt, who is now Elizabeth, and both the Lutece twins. And the other side, you have Booker. Okay, so everything goes hunky dory, and in Comstock's racist wonderland for a while. And at some point, they kill, or Comstock tries to kill or does kill, depending how you look at it, the Luteces. Certainly, they're no longer. I mean, they're able to just sort of hop around willy-nilly, right? So they're not.
Are we then to deduce that they discovered or invented a way to hop in and out of realities and basically teleport as well?
Yes. So basically, they did some more research. Elizabeth grew up, and before the events of Bioshock Infinite, the Comstock arranges to kill the Luteces.
Right.
So the Luteces are sort of killed, and They just appear like the Cheshire Cat everywhere.
Right.
And the what was it? At this point, either the thing is the Lutece's motives are never ever clear. You never know why they're doing what they're doing.
No, and even at the end of the game, they like disappear, and you never hear from them again or why they did what they did.
Yes, so there's no explanation for why the Luteces are doing what they're doing. But they bring in Booker from an alternate timeline, or Booker DeWitt, the one who lost Anna DeWitt, and then basically the events of Bioshock Infinite begin. You wake up as Booker DeWitt in this alternate Comstock timeline. They're rowing you towards the boat, or towards the lighthouse. You get launched up, and then the events of Bioshock Infinite proceed from there.
Right. So let me stop you there so I get this clear. So when you wake up, so the twins stole you from your real reality?
Yes.
Okay. Now that makes a little sense.
Yes. Yeah, so I mean, basically, at that point,
But if I recall correctly, also, at the very beginning of the game, Elizabeth is in the boat with you, right?
She is not.
Oh, she's not. I thought she was, but never mind.
No.
Okay, so continue. So it's only the twins who are with you in the boat.
Yeah. In the boat,
Okay.
it's just the twins with you. So they're rowing you forward, and then the events of Bioshock Infinite take place. And basically, it plays itself pretty straight. Rescue the girl from the tower, right? That's something we've been seeing since Mario. Okay. And it kind of sets up the world of Columbia, and then you meet Elizabeth, and you find out about her reality tearing ability, and then it kind of it stays in this same timeline and this very kind of this what we're gonna call the main timeline, which is what you spend 50% of the game in, okay, or
Right.
at least the first half of the first 2/3,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then what happens is you go through this a series of reality warps, where you basically, I mean, this is the most ridiculous thing. You reality warp to find guns for the Vox Populi, okay?
Yeah.
And then you reality warp again to find out to get the gunsmith back or whatever. And then when you reality warp a third time, it doesn't matter because the revolution's on anyway, okay? So like there are 3 reality warps that are very, very close proximity to each other, like about 2/3 or a third of the way through the game.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you stay in that for pretty much the rest.
And then you stay in that pretty much the rest until you get flung into the future, and then you meet old Elizabeth, who sends you back, and allows you to, gives you the clue to defeat Songbird, right. And then you defeat Songbird, and you destroy the tower that Elizabeth was in, which is evidently keeping her from using her powers, although she could still warp realities. Nothing is really made clear there.
Nothing changed when she escaped.
Right, and then basically she becomes, the fucking Neo in the Matrix, right, in the last 20 minutes. And oh, by the way, when you disappear and you wind up in that underwater thing, because you've never played Bioshock.
No, that's what I was gonna say. That's the first Bioshock.
Yeah, that's the first Bioshock. And to be honest, I was honestly almost willing to accept it if it had just stopped the reality warping there and then just stayed in the Bioshock, because the Bioshock universe doesn't have any of this reality warping nonsense. It's a straight, story with no timeline nonsense and no reality warping nonsense. So if it had just cut out the reality warping crap there, stuck with Booker and Elizabeth, and just played it through the rest of, the Bioshock, like, let's get out of this underwater thing, then yeah, hey, I would have forgiven a lot about this, because there's a lot to forgive.
I was gonna say, because in the Bioshock universe, when is that underwater city built? I thought it was built in like the 50s or the 40s.
Yeah, it's built in like the 50s, and this is built in. And exactly, it doesn't make any sense that this is all taking place.
This is supposed to be 1912. Yeah.
1912. Okay, and you're suddenly 50 years in the future. So yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. None of this makes a lot of sense, but honestly, yeah. So anyway, after that point, you just kind of follow Elizabeth around, and then it gets really, it basically explains the plot that I've just explained to you in the last 15 or 20 minutes of the game. So that right there is the basic bare bones Bioshock Infinite timeline.
Yep.
Sequence of events.
See, I didn't even need to watch the 3.5-hour movie.
Right. So what was your relationship, or like how did you feel about playing as or watching first person as this Booker DeWitt character?
So, I mean, what I noticed right off the bat was the complete unnecessary violence, because he had that like claw thing.
Yes.
That he got at the beginning, and all of a sudden he starts like throwing that in people's faces and like chopping them up.
Right.
And I'm like, why? Why are you shooting the guy? Why are you wasting all this time to do all this unnecessary, gruesome violence?
Mm-hmm.
When you could just shoot the guy or blow the guy away, and it's like, the claw thing makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't, and it's really visceral, and it's really just, kind of gross, and it's not thematically appropriate, because
no, it's not, and I feel like they threw it in there just to be unnecessarily gross and gruesome, and it just has no place in mm-hmm. the story at all for this thing to be used.
Mm-hmm. So, this video game started development in 2007 and released in 2013, and it was that is a pretty long time for a video game to be in development, okay? It's about twice as long as you would normally see, for like a game like, like Halo or Mass Effect or, Baldur's Gate or whatever,
Right, and especially as being as short as it was, because you said it only took you like 16 hours to beat it.
Yeah.
If you look at like a Final Fantasy, which takes like 4 or 5 years to develop, or a Grand Theft Auto, you're looking at a good 50 plus hours.
Yeah, exactly.
So what you get out of this 5, 6, 7 year, development cycle is something that can be done on a weekend.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely not something that you would expect to take, it's not a weekend, right? But it's not something you expect to take 6 or 7 years to make this game.
Right. I mean, the point is, I would expect it to be a lot longer playing time for.
Yeah.
That, what do they do for all that time?
So, the game did not have a combat system in it until 2011.
So what? It was just like a puzzle solver? You just walk around and puzzle solve?
So if you may have not noticed this on your first playthrough, okay, but there's basically 3 stages from what I've been able to find out that this game went through. It went through like the initial art concept, you know, and kind of like overall world building concept for the first, say, 2 years.
Yep.
And that's where you get stuff like Columbia. That's where you get stuff like, you know, the religiousness and the patriotism mixed together, okay? And then what happened was, then in the next 2 years, there was Elizabeth. And Elizabeth got a lot of priority from the game development, and a lot of crap got thrown out because the guy who was making this video game was very, very interested in having this character in there. And she was very, very insistent that she be put in there. And repeatedly, he was told by people underneath him, and this is all like third hand I managed to gather from, you know, the internet, so take it all with a grain of salt. But he was told by people that, no, you can't make this woman who can tear realities, you know, and zip back and forth through reality. You can't make her work with this story. I mean, you've already got, like, all these fantastic elements, you know? So, but he was very insistent, make it work, make it work, make it work. It's going to revolutionize games, yada, yada. And then, so, like, you'll notice that Elizabeth is very, very, you know, she will find objects to interact with in the environment. She will lean against walls and do all that sort of stuff. And nobody else in the game even moves. Like, all the NPCs are just standing there, maybe walking around, maybe saying the same 1 or 2 lines. So you can get a sense, just in this, comparing apples to apples, like the amount of time they put into this one NPC versus all the other NPCs. You can clearly tell where the development time went. And so after 2 years of this, they were like, oh shit, we don't have a game here. because once Elizabeth got thrown in there, it was like, oh my god, reality warping. We can, like, make, like, giant storms appear, or she can, like, bring down 1,000 bicycles to rain upon your enemy. You're like, I mean, you know, so basically,
like, everything's on the table at that point.
Yeah, basically they went from having, all right, this is a world about, you know, these issues of, you know, national sovereignty, of patriotism, of religiosity, and you know, and then it went from that to everything's on the table. It's a Doctor Who story. So, and then after that, the combat is trying to be developed in this environment where anything goes, and combat does not work. And, like, video game combat needs rules.
Yes.
And so that one of the things that I spared you from was playing through the combat in this game, which is not fun to participate in any way, shape, or form.
From what I saw, that it does not look very, very fun at all.
Yeah, it is a bog standard first-person shooter from, like, the Medal of Honor days. Like, that's
the worst, is
yeah.
Medal of Honor.
Well, yeah, or, I mean, Medal of Honor, I mean, in 2003, when it came out, right, you know, it was probably pretty good.
I didn't like it then, so you're talking to the choir.
Right. So, I mean, but there's nothing in this shooter that you wouldn't find in any shooter that was made, you know, like, in 2005.
Yeah.
And that's because development started in 2007.
Right. Well, when I was watching the video, and like you said, they cut a lot out, but it seemed like there was a lot of standby sniping, and then a lot of, like, I'm going to run up to this guy and blow his head off.
Yep.
And just a lot of repeatingness of that.
Yep. Yeah, there's nothing in this combat. that's new or exciting, except for their, I give credit where credit is due. The sky rail where you jump on and you go to a different point in the map. That's a really neat thing. I'll give it, but it's just not enough.
No, well, I like the concept of that. I'll give him that. But the way it was designed and stylized, like, it has to make sense for me to believe it. This like loopy theme parky, cartoony type of style of how it like loops around and goes everywhere. I thought that was really stupid. It needs to be a usable thing that somebody would actually sit down and design from a utility standpoint, where you have it like looping all over and bending and twisty and doing these unnecessary loops. It's like this is a cartoon. This isn't a video game. This isn't a realistic thing. This is stupid.
Yeah, and there's a lot of Columbia, that doesn't make sense. But I mean, you must have by the end of this game slaughtered every adult male in Columbia. I mean, I would say that I had a 4-digit body count by the end of this game.
That's the thing. Like, why are these people even fighting you?
That's the thing, is that they seem to be fighting you because you killed a bunch of them because they were fighting you. Like,
I guess. Mm-hmm. But then even you have like, okay, so and maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but you have this like Slate character in the beginning. Who's like your old general buddy or something like that, and he fights you and sends people after you, and it's like, why? Who is this guy, and why am I fighting his people?
Right. And also, he is I honestly, he's such a weak sauce character. I can't even remember him. But I mean, I do remember that,
he's
like,
the dude in the museum, like the museum, like when you're fighting through the museum.
Exactly, and he's just calling you Tin Man and all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, this guy, right, Slate, he's going up against Comstock. He's making a revolution about Comstock. You've already killed like half of Comstock's friggin' police force.
He should be your ally here. Why am I fighting him?
But nobody is your ally ever in this game. And everybody is just out to murder you all the time for no reason. And it makes no sense. And so this is the one of the things that I'm gonna take away from this story, or take away from this, is the combat has nothing to do with the story. So it's obvious that these things were developed completely independent of each other, because there's no way that you can ever. There's that moment, right, where Elizabeth kills that black lady, Daisy,
the Vox person,
right?
I guess Daisy.
Yeah, and it was so serious that she had killed somebody. And you've already, like, you have walked on a river of corpses to this point.
Yeah, and she was there for all of that.
And she was there for all of it.
And she was like throwing you ammunition and stuff like that. It's like, you're an accomplice.
You're an accomplice. Like, now that you managed to pick up a bobby pin and poke somebody, okay, all right, you're gonna freak out and cut your hair and So I just want to say, just overall, I've never had a video game or a movie experience, and this is the reason why I wanted to make this just overall, is that I've never had a movie or video game experience that started so high and then never took a step upward.
Yes.
It was all downhill. All downhill. From the minute that game started, it was all fucking downhill. And then at the end where, so what did you think of the ending? I just want to know.
Well, now that you kind of, like, at first that didn't make any sense to me. Like, how can you beat Comstock? How can this even happen? But when you walked through the timeline, it started to make a little more sense. But even then, it didn't make any sense.
Right.
Because I mean, even if you go back to the point where you kill Comstock, like, first of all, you are obviously out to kill this guy, and he should know that by now. I mean, he's been after you the whole game. And you walk in there, and he just lets you in. He's like, "Oh, come on in, daughter." And then obviously I'm going to kill him, and so I do. Mm-hmm. And he didn't put up any fight at all. Like, what? He's like the main bad guy I'm supposed to be after.
Yeah.
And then the Vox like attacks like your blimp. And they're like, "We're coming after you, Comstock." Why didn't you just say, "Hey, he's already dead"? Why do I have to go through this whole song and dance and fight them now? Because they're trying to kill...
Yes,
they're trying to kill Comstock.
Out on the prow of the ship and show him.
Yeah, cut off his head and lift it up. We killed him already.
So was there a point in the story where you kind of just gave up on trying to figure it out? And if so, when was that point?
I think I was following along. Well, I think I was following along pretty well, storyline wise, up until the point where I started jumping through realities, like after to get the weapons, like that whole sequence.
Yes.
But even so, like before then, okay, so let's talk about that for a little bit too, because the Vox attack your ship, I guess, and then take it over, and they make you go get their own weapons to get the ship back. Did I hear that correctly? Why don't I just go to another ship and take over a different one? Or B, why didn't the Vox just go get their own weapons? Why do they even care about me? Why are they even here attacking me and making me do something? Why don't they do their own work? Because obviously they can't trust me, which they kind of said many times, so why are they making me do that?
They kidnap you, they take your ship.
Right.
And then they just dump you out and say, "Hey, I know you've only been here for about 5 minutes, and I know that I'm on the exact same side as you if you're killing a whole bunch of Comstock's dudes. But I'm just going to throw you to the wolves, despite the fact that you already have probably killed single-handedly more people than my revolution ever will."
Right.
That you just dump this dude out onto,
Town or whatever.
The Think Town, Slaveryville.
Yeah.
And you just, you give me a fetch quest, right? And so this is where I feel like, okay, so if I had been a competent game designer, okay, this is where I would have introduced the hub world. I've already, kind of introduced Columbia, okay? Now let's have his ship get stolen and then dump him out into this world that he can, choose what spokes in the game to explore.
Here's what, if I was a game developer, I wouldn't say, "I'm going to attack your ship and you're not going to get it back until you give me my weapons. I'm going to keep Elizabeth until you give me my weapons." Because that's something you actually need. Like I said, from a ship, why didn't I just take another ship?
Right. And you managed to do that about 4 times in the course of the game. I've counted. People like to think that this is a giant, complicated game. It's really not. The motivation stays the same for 80%, 90%
Get to the ship. Get to the ship.
Get to the ship. Oh, the ship burned? Blew up? All right, get to another ship. Get to another ship.
Get to Get to the Comcast ship. Get to the Elizabeth
Comcast
ship, or whatever his name is.
Comstock, yeah. Yeah. So you may have not noticed this, but if you go into, I think it's about an hour into the game, the entire plot gets ruined about an hour into this game, because at one point you're running away from Elizabeth, or you're chasing Elizabeth, and you fall, and then Elizabeth reality tears a giant airship to save you.
Right.
Which you could have just taken out right then and there.
Yes.
But no, I mean, and surely this city must be out in the middle of the fucking Pacific Ocean or something, because if you ever looked down and saw land, you could just make a kite, man. You could, like, hang glide down and you'd be
Well,
fine.
I mean, let's reverse it even more. Why didn't she just reality jump herself into Paris like she did in the beginning?
Exactly. You see that, so that's okay. So yeah, that's really where the plot starts. The minute that Elizabeth is introduced, the plot starts to have problems, because I went back and I looked at it, okay, and I was like, okay, does she just open, like, windows to other worlds and then she can't, like, interact with the thing? No. She's repeatedly shown to, like, open a window and then events on the other side of the window or events on her side of the window affect the other and vice versa.
Right.
So it really goes to question, if she could do this the whole time, why is she still a captive? Why didn't she just, the minute she learned how to do this, make a little tear, go bloop, and then...
Right, well, like she said, when she was growing up, she used to go, she could conjure up at any place she wanted to go, and go there. And, like, why would you go back to your cage? Why you just stay there?
Yeah. Yeah, like, I mean, even if you were like 5 or something, you'd probably figure out a way to go to some world and just wouldn't be smart enough to figure your way back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, like, Elizabeth has a lot of problems as a character.
Here's another thing too that I thought of during the thing, because you know how she said, like, the bird thing, which is unnecessarily big, by the way. Like, I don't see why that's even feasible or necessary to make the bird, like, 5 stories tall.
Mm-hmm.
But she was saying, like, how the bird brought her books and all this stuff to learn from, and I'm like, if she's locked in a tower, why is the bird bringing her books on how to pick a lock and all this, like, escape knowledge that she claims she also learned about by having nothing but time and to read?
Yeah, I mean, you would not want to give someone, like, especially who can travel apparently to different realities and open holes in the fabric of space-time, you would not want to give them books on how to escape if your main goal is to
keep her there.
So no, it doesn't make sense. So what? Okay, I just want to know, what did you think of Elizabeth, in just overall? What did you think?
I liked her until she went emo.
My exact same reaction. She got emo, cut her hair, got super made up, and suddenly grew about 3 or 4 tit sizes. Like, I mean, it was Disney princess until then, and then it got, like, dark and edgy, right?
She was practically Belle until she killed the person.
Yes.
And then it was like, no, I didn't like her at all. I did, however, like the whole old Elizabeth concept. Because if I think I have it straight in my head correctly, DeWitt, it's a paradox, because DeWitt didn't show up to rescue her because old Elizabeth brought DeWitt to the future.
Yes. And
so what happened to DeWitt in the old Elizabeth's timeline? Because
no. Well, what happened was he's going to rescue Elizabeth, and then in the timeline where he fails, okay.
Right, that's the thing. Like, did he, like, die or something on the way, and that's why old Elizabeth brought him to the future?
I guess, or something. But in any regards, he gets pulled in the future by old Elizabeth, and this is the Elizabeth who was captured, was tortured. I did like the evil Elizabeth, right? The crusading fire,
Right, let's bomb New York.
Yeah, exactly. And just is Colombia a threat in 1980 to America? Like,
was that the
in
year
no
it was supposed
way.
to be? Well, I guess it is because she's like 80 at that time.
I know, but like,
I kind of got the impression it was supposed to be the 30s, but I could have been completely wrong. That
it was actually the 80s.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, we have lots of fighters, bombers, missiles,
That's a
and
good
they
point.
have zeppelins.
Of course, in their timeline, that could have never been developed, and the city in the sky could have, kept everybody at bay.
Yeah, and I would have liked to see some, like, it needed a little more world building in terms of, if you were going to hop towards the future. If it's 1912 and you just built this flying city, it doesn't matter. You're not. But if you go forward, you're going to have
obviously,
like a larger deviation because you have this massive flying city influencing history.
Right. Because it's been around for 70 years.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I did like that. I did like that as well.
But I like, the whole point is I like the concept of old Elizabeth kind of seeing the error of her ways, go back and reach out and pull in DeWitt to the future to say, hey, this is going to go down, go fix it, and then sending him back. I did like that concept, as brief as it was.
It was very, very brief. Did you think that this? I have two kind of main complaints about this story. One is that it's not a good story. It doesn't make any logical sense in a host of different ways. Two, it's is not a video game. It's very much a sense, or it's like the only thing I can think of to compare right now is like Harry Potter and Quidditch, right? So Harry Potter, right, is told to just catch the snitch, all right, and that's basically his game, and it doesn't really have anything to do with the rest of the any other players.
Yeah.
Any other players. So you are Harry Potter, and shooting people is your snitch, and like at every other point, the game refuses to allow you to interact or make a choice that has a consequence or use a system to influence the outcome. So you may have seen...
So that's a sense that I didn't necessarily get just watching the video, because obviously I'm not the one making any choice at all.
Yeah.
But I can see how it's almost a video game on rails, where it has a very linear path, and you're on this for the ride whether you like it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's not really you're never going to go back to a place that you've been before, or at least there's nothing there.
So it's not like, I guess it's not like a Grand Theft Auto open world type setup. It's very linear, hallway.
You go from one doorway to another. You are on rails the entire time. There's some limited exploration where basically you can, and this is all in the first half of the game, when you're in the prime reality. It's where you can find, like lockpicks, so you can go into like another little room that's locked off the side of the hallway. So that's about the extent of the exploration in this game. And then maybe there'll be like some guns, some money, and a voxophone. Like that's always what's in the room. Yeah. So, what did you think of the voxophones? That seemed like a great way to record information and store it.
I did like it because it's that steampunky type technology.
Right.
which I do appreciate and like that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked the quantum punk almost, right?
Right.
You know, because that's what this was, is everything that needed, you know, an explanation was quantum, you know, quantum this, quantum that, which I think is one of the ways that this gets disguised as a good game, is because people might actually think that there's some actual science behind any of this. And there is not.
Right.
So, yeah, it's,
I mean, even if you think about it, like, I don't even know if the whole concept of the flying city is necessary. Like, why couldn't Why couldn't they just build this city in the mountains and, you know, you pretty much have the same story and game?
Well, I mean, you could set it in the Star Wars universe. You could set it in 13th century France. You could set it in medieval Japan. I mean, you know, you could set it on, you know, like a post-apocalyptic Fallout vault, right? You know,
Yep.
you could do it anywhere, because the plot of the story is between you and Elizabeth, and it's this, you know, and that's the part of the problem with this game that I find, is that so much of it is a giant red herring. Like, you know, it's Daisy, Fitzroy, and the Fox don't matter. Fink and Slate and all these people Comstock barely matters. You know? So, you know, you could just set up this story anywhere you wanted to. So,
right, that's the whole point. Like, the flying city, like, what role does setting it there play? It almost nothing.
That's the thing. It has no role. It has no role in there.
Right.
Like, Elizabeth so thoroughly destroys the story, that it because at a certain point it transitions from being like the story of Comstock and versus Daisy Fitzroy and all this, how the ins and outs of Columbus works. At some point it transitions from that, and then it's just all about Elizabeth. It's all about Elizabeth.
Right, from there on out.
From there on out. And none of the stuff that you were told earlier is even relevant.
No.
So that's why, you know, it's kind of inexcusable that it wastes so much of your time, you know, on irrelevant bullshit that doesn't serve the story.
Well, let's go back to the whole Slate deal. Like, he is 100% pointless, because A, he doesn't even make sense from the story's perspective of how I even know this guy, or why he's there, or why he's fighting you. But let's think back to why you went to him in the first place. You were trying to get to this blimp thing, right? That was attached to a gondola. Yeah, and you had to get the jock jukey or whatever it was called. And oh, by the way, we found out that they have some of that at the Museum of Heroes, and so
it's so bad.
So instead of using my little grappling hook thing, which I've been bouncing around all over the place up until this point to get to the gondola right above me, I have to go way out of my way to this museum that's across town.
Yeah.
And when I get there, there's this random person who just starts fighting me, and I have to fight and go through all this trouble just to get this jock jukey to enact the gondola.
Right.
Like, that has no business whatsoever of being a part of this game, because it's pointless. Why didn't I just jump up there?
Yes. So this is the one of the problems with Bioshock Infinite. One of the many problems is that it's not so much a story, so much as a sequence of events that occur,
right,
and are not connected to each other.
In any logical
you're
way.
You're absolutely right. Which is going to be and even if you fought the first 5 guys, you'd be like, and any sane person would be like, all right, better not head in there. You know, there's a lot of bad dudes in there. Let's figure out another way to get up onto that thing. But no, you have to slaughter your way through yet more and more, and you have to go through the racist Disney rides. And did you like those? Did you? What did you think of those?
I'm not following. Which part was that?
Oh, it's where like you have to go to the two things that like they're the they're exposition Disney rides where you kill people, you know.
Exposition
They explain
Disney,
the
right?
Boxer Rebellion and they explain the Battle of Wounded Knee.
Oh,
And,
you mean yeah, in the museum.
yeah, in the most yeah. So, yeah. I mean,
No, it's like that kind of goes back to my point of actual design. This, this is I'm supposed to believe that this is a real museum in a city.
right.
Like no, it's just so over the top. It feels cartoonish.
Yep.
Which I do not appreciate.
Right.
Because it doesn't feel like a museum. It feels like I've been thrown into this kooky house.
Right. And you can't have a cartoonish so you know, if it was just this straight swashbuckling, you know, cartoonish adventure tale, okay, that would be one thing. But it wants to be intellectual and deep,
right.
and also
It wants to be an
and,
intellectual, realistic video game, and I
yes,
just don't buy it because it doesn't mesh with the cartoony, landscape.
yes, and the cartoony violence too.
Yeah.
Where you rip some dude's skull apart with your crazy fucking claw hand, and then a couple scenes later tell Elizabeth how bad you felt killing all those Indians at Wounded Knee. You've already tripled your body count at the thing. That's the big okay. So that's the biggest problem I have with Booker DeWitt is that. So all of this, right? All of everything you see in Bioshock Infinite, okay, is the result of Booker DeWitt feeling bad for killing like with a group of people, with a group of Union soldiers, 800 or 300, I don't remember the exact number, American Indians. By the time you've played through Bioshock Infinite, you've killed 4,000. Right. And these are like Americans too. Like you would have so much more of like if you were accepting of the racial bullshit of the era, right? You would feel so much worse if it was 300 white dudes versus 300 Indians, all right?
But
Probably.
It's like you said, it's 5,000 white dudes.
There's like 5,000 American white dudes that you just plowed through, and feeling bad about doing a tenth of that is supposedly what started all of this. So it like the combat really makes the story. It just the thing is the combat is at least 80% of the game, 70% of the game, and it makes the remaining 30, which is supposed to be the bits that are lovingly crafted and oh, take a look at this amazing artwork, it makes everything about that ridiculous.
So what is the general consensus? That this is a great game? Like most people think that?
I pulled up some critic reviews, okay, and these are all from April or March or May 2013. So I'll just read from you. It on Metacritic, right? It has a overall score of 94%. So I'll give you some quotes from things that I recognize. So The Guardian, Bioshock Infinite is a hell of a lot of fun to play. That really should be the only quality it needs to exhibit. The fact that it holds up so much more feels like an advancement of an art form. Just remember that nothing in Bioshock Infinite is an attempt to be cute. Just let it tell you its story.
So my review would pretty much be the exact opposite of all those sentences.
The Telegraph. Any gripes of the action are washed away when the narrative flexes its considerable muscle. It is a fabulous piece of storytelling, thick with foreshadowing and a gut punch of a finale. Most importantly, like Bioshock before it, Infinite could only work as a video game, finessing the art of player agency and interaction. Proof positive the right talent and drive, games can plow through their own narrative furrow and excel at it. I'm wondering if they ever played the game, because we don't seem to have played the same game.
That's what I said. Like, did they play the same game? Did they play something different? Because
here we go. The Escapist. Bioshock Infinite is both a breathtaking achievement in video game storytelling and a marquee example of a game that will stick with you long after you've seen everything it has to offer.
That's
Calling
true.
it simply a first-person shooter is practically an insult. If you can make it through the game without being emotionally affected, or even experiencing a bit of an existential crisis, you need to check your pulse immediately. These have all been 100 reviews. This game came out in March, and already they were saying, this is the game of the year. This is the game of the year.
Are there any bad reviews? Like, that hate it?
There's nothing below an 80. And this is just off of Metacritic, so...
Right, because you're right, like, I mean, what we've been saying, like, this is not good.
I know!
By any standard, so I don't understand why they could rate it so high. Unless, of course, they were paid off, which I could also see as a possibility.
Yeah, I could see that. You know, I mean, or it's probably like a more subtle thing. It's not like somebody dropped a bag of cash.
Well, here's the thing. Like you said, this thing's been in development forever. Everybody seemed to love the first Bioshock, which I think you said you liked the first Bioshock, right?
Yeah, I'd say that it was a very interesting game. What was good about it and what stuck with people was, I think, the fact that, and spoiler here, if you ever play it, and you're probably not going to ever play it, you've basically been going along this railway the whole time. You know, it's a little more open than Bioshock Infinite. You know, you can explore, you can go out and do stuff, but, mostly, there's, you know, a set path of events. And then it's revealed to you later that you've been going down the set path of events because every time that you move from area to area, a person uses a code phrase on you, and you've actually been brainwashed, and the code phrase makes you do whatever is inserted after the code phrase, you know, and when you're told it. So. The code phrase is, you know, would you kindly? So it meshes in really well with the narrative. You've got this guy on the radio, and he's asking you, would you kindly do this? Would you kindly open this door? Would you kindly pull that lever? Would you kindly, yada, yada, yada. And then, oh, lo and behold, the whole time he was mind controlling you.
Right.
So
that works.
Yeah, it works.
That to me
I
works.
mean, it's a way that you use the narrative to
control the limitations of the video game.
Right, or to explain to explain away the narrative limitations, all right?
Right.
In just the same way that, like, if you were to do a stage play, and it was a stage play about a bunch of kids putting on a stage play, right? Well, then you don't really have to excuse the fact that you don't have a set. You don't have, you just have this hole in the wall, you know? Like, yeah, so,
Well, here's why I bring that up, because you talk about all these reviewers who reviewed this thing when it came out, and obviously this thing has had a million-year-long development cycle, and they liked the first one. I don't think there's any argument that the first one was pretty good. So they already had a predetermined opinion that they wanted to like this game so much.
Yes. I would say that's very fair.
It's the same thing, and that just came out in their reviews, because they wanted to like it, and so they deluded themselves into actually thinking it was good. Same thing with Star Wars. You look at the new Star Wars movie, I think it's terrible. But most people seem to love it as the greatest Star Wars ever. Now, at the same time, when Episode 1 came out, guess what? Everybody loved Episode 1. And it wasn't only until an objectively looking back from it, a few years later, that you realize how awful it actually was.
Yes.
you know, and I think the same's going to happen with this new Star Wars movie. I think 4 years down the road, you're going to look back at it, and everybody's going to be like, "This is terrible."
Do you think that'll happen with this game too?
Well, that's the thing. Like, I don't know, because you said it came out when
2013.
So it's already been a while.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see, you know, an objective, because like I'm coming on this blind.
Hey, babe.
I wasn't looking forward to it. You know, I had no opinion whatsoever. And so I'm coming at this as an objective, you know, observer here, and I think it's terrible. And so I wonder what, after years go by, what people go back and look at this game as.
Yeah, I'd say that it's you know, it has a lot of pomp and circumstance around it, and certainly the art direction is beautiful. But the thing is, the story is just so, you know, it's so fundamentally screwed up that you're not going to be able to. I mean, you know, you watching it as a video, you know, did you feel like this would have made a good movie? You know. Even if you took away the game aspect, do you think this would be savable if this same plot was transferred?
I think so, because you wouldn't have the stupid events where it's like, oh, we need to get to that airship, I need to go off on this huge tangent to get this shock jockey, instead of just going to the airship. So right. I think for the sake of a movie, to dumb it down so much that you fit it into an hour and a half or however long it is, I think that would cut out all the stupid, you know, side-offs that really made this game terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel very video gamey, you know, with the get X, get the red key to go through the red door, you know, that kind of.
Right. Because I think when you turn it into a screenplay, you would get rid of most of that.
I think so. And it's very clear this, at some point, and I think it was the introduction of Elizabeth, right, that this no longer became an experience for the player. It just wasn't a game anymore. Like, it was, you're going to see my cutscenes, you know, and the last 20 minutes of it, the finale, is not a game. It is an interactive cutscene that you walk through. So, you know, it starts out sort of a video game and then ends up just completely not being one. And I think that's kind of what people, maybe that's the thing that, you know, I see this all the time now in video games, now that we've kind of reached parity with, you know, movies. You know, you can 3D, you know, you don't have cartoons anymore like they're hand-drawn or animated. Everything's 3D now.
Yep.
And we just had that movie, right, Inside Out, where you had, you know, human beings, you know, running around. It's all animated. It's all, Pixar's been doing this forever. So, like, we were at the point where we're able to computer generate, you know, entire stories. And I think video game developers, they want in on that. They want in on the you know, they certainly want in on stuff like, you know, like cinematic experiences. They want to start competing with movies. You know, they want to start competing with TV shows. It's on a screen. You know, it competing with your time. And there's just there's just something that's missing in it, because you walk into something expecting a video game, and have a certain set of expectations on what a game is, and then you go into something like Bioshock Infinite, and you're like, oh, this isn't a game. This is some hallway somebody designed for me to walk down, and that can be fine. That can be fine, but don't pretend that this is the same thing as like a video game. I mean, you need to have something there for the player to control or do, and that's just not present in Bioshock Infinite.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's an interesting point. However, I would argue that almost all video games have a very hallway-esque like to it, whether you realize it or not. I mean, even if you look at an open world like Zelda or Grand Theft Auto, there is still a sequence of events that you have to do in a particular order, or else you can't progress. And so, what Bioshock Infinite does is take out the whole open world aspect to it, and all you're left with is the hallway.
Mm-hmm.
But I would almost argue that it's very hard to develop a video game that's truly open world and, choose your own adventure, because you'd have to develop every option for the player, and that would take forever. And so I think they get away with it by making this hallway type deal, and they usually mask it in this open world, kind of adventure-y type deal. Well,
I mean, it goes to how your narrative interacts with your gameplay, right? If you set up this character, say, to be the biggest coward in the world, and he's about to fight the dragon on the eve of the big battle or whatever, and you don't give him the option to run away,
Yeah.
You've just made a huge jarring discord in your narrative and your, whereas if you set up a character to be like a brave, dragon killing, invincible dude or whatever, and then you send him out there, well, you don't have to give him the option to run away, because that's not in character, or that's not, something that would be likely to happen in that universe, for the story you've set up.
Right.
So, I understand what you're saying. Of course, all of the options can never be represented. You can never have, and that's one of the problems I think with Bioshock is it tries to have its cake and eat it too. It introduces characters that can do literally anything, but you can't do that in a game.
Right. At least not yet.
Yeah. No. So I don't know. Do you have any closing thoughts, maybe?
Closing thoughts? I think it's interesting to watch the movie. I'm glad I didn't play through the whole thing. But overall, I mean, it was an experience. Like it or hate it, it's an experience. And I think even something you hate that you watched is worth doing. So I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I watched it, but I didn't like it.
Okay, so well, I guess that sums it up. I mean, I don't think I have anything more to add. It's that, yeah, I didn't like it. I mean, I did.
I was going to say, can we talk about these parallel universes a little bit? Because we didn't get into that too much.
Oh, we did.
And I'd like some explaining to do if you know what went on there.
Okay, yes.
So this whole sequence about getting the guns is really what I'm keying off of, because I think that made the most unsense out of anything in the game. About how, I think the first jump you did was you find the guy dead in the room, and you jump to a universe where he never died.
Yes.
So what happened? So you jump to a whole nother universe. Doesn't that mean then that there are now two Elizabeths in that other universe?
So, I think, and this is the thing, it's never actually explicitly stated.
No.
But you never do meet another Elizabeth, do you?
No.
So I guess you can infer from one of the way this works is that she's her own person in every single universe.
That makes no sense. A universe is a universe. It's defined. How can you be everywhere at once and nowhere at once at the same time?
Well, Bill, don't you understand quantum physics?
Yes, but it doesn't work here.
Right.
Because if I jump to another universe that's exactly the same except for one tiny little minor detail, there should be another Elizabeth there. Otherwise, if there's only one Elizabeth and she's in your world, there wouldn't be and would have never been an Elizabeth in the other world. And you jump like 3 times, and so in each of these worlds, everything's pretty much the same thing, except... And that goes back to a whole other thing, too, because the whole argument with alternative universes is always goofed up in movies and TV shows, and in this case, a video game, because they always make the fundamental flaw that every time you see this in a movie or game or whatever, it's always the exact same world that we know and love, only like there's a minor difference or tweak.
Right.
Like you think about Stargate, like Sam and Jack were like married.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've ever seen The One, like
right.
President Gore was elected in one universe,
yes,
and in our
yes.
universe, it was
yes.
Bush. But here's the fundamental flaw in that, because obviously something has to change in order for those differences to be there. And if the universe is so much the same that you were led to, the sequence of events was exactly the same that led to your birth, and then something changed after that, I find that almost impossible to exist, because what would have changed? Why would something be different if everything leading up to your birth was exactly the same?
Well, I mean, nations are not going to rise and fall if Bill dies or lives, probably, right?
No,
so.
But what I'm saying is that what is different in this other universe that didn't have a butterfly effect over billions of years to create? Like, you go back in time and kill a bug, I can guarantee you, like where the dinosaurs lived, every single bug that came from that bug and evolved from that bug and descended from that bug never existed. And something else took its place. And so when you get to our world today, like you kill a ladybug 3 million years ago, I can guarantee you the same people would not be alive today. Just due to the compounding effects of that little bitty change over time. And so that's my whole point. If you can have the exact same thing that leads up to an exact reality, only now Jack and Samantha are married, what caused them to not now be married in this universe? Likewise, in the context of this video game, what caused the voxel evolution to begin?
So, it's not really clearly explained. This is something that
Right, and it's not.
So, in that universe that you go to, where the revolution's already in progress, the Booker DeWitt, that entered that universe, tried to start a revolution and succeeded. So, and he died. He died.
I get that. But then what happens to your universe that you left? They're just out in the wind? Like,
that's the thing.
Because you never go back.
From the minute that you jump to and this is the crazy thing that happened to me when I was playing this game. It was like, wait a minute, we can jump from another universe to another universe, and we're doing this to get guns. Like, it's like Elizabeth says we may never be able to come back, and I'm like, I'm with you on this universe hopping thing. If like we're about to die or something like that, then pull that reality escape chute. But this seems a little extreme,
Yeah.
It seems like taking getting a hydrogen bomb to take care of your spider problem out back, right? It's gonna work, but so and then that opens up a whole host of questions where it's like, well, why couldn't they just hop to a universe where nobody was after them in Columbia? Why couldn't they just hop to a place that wasn't Columbia?
Right.
You know?
That the Columbia never existed, or something.
Or Columbia never existed, right? So, yeah.
Which should theoretically be your own universe that you originated in, because you are Comstock who started all of that.
Yes. Exactly. And that's another thing, too, is that people's motivation sticks around like a little too long or past when it makes sense. So Booker's motivation up until that point, where they jump universes for the first time, is that he's got to bring Elizabeth back to New York City to pay the debt that he's incurred from gambling and drinking and whatever.
Right. Which, don't get me wrong, but let me clarify something there. Did he become like delusional that he didn't do that already?
Yeah. So apparently, when you cross universes, your mind makes up stuff and makes up stories for you to believe in. So on top of all of this, Booker is also an unreliable narrator.
So couldn't you make the argument then that all of this took place in his head and none of this ever even happened, which makes no sense?
Yeah. I mean, there's really no way for you to say that this is in most things, saying it was all a dream would not be an improvement. But in this, right. I think you can make that case. I can make that case if you knock Booker on the head or whatever.
Because then it starts to make sense, because dreams don't make sense fundamentally. And so you could make the argument that all of this was a dream because none of it made any sense.
Because none of it makes any sense. Yeah, it's turtles all the way down. Yeah.
But anyway, what were you saying about something there about when he crossed universes or something like that?
Oh, well, it's apparently when you cross universes, like your brain will make up fake memories in order to protect itself, and this is the physics of the metaphysics of the Bioshock Infinite universe. Like, this is just something that happens. It's why you get all these nosebleeds all the time, right?
Oh, is that why they explained it?
That's how they explained it, right? But it doesn't make sense because literally, if you're considering infinite universes, there's a dead version of you somewhere out there. So why doesn't everybody have nosebleeds? Why doesn't everybody have, it's not that, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It also wants to have its cake and eat it too, with the sense of, so you can hop from reality to reality, and they can be like little tiny differences or whatever. But when it comes to, Booker getting baptized, and this is, when you say that I explained it and it made sense, trust me, that just because you haven't thought about it long enough, it's basically saying that, yeah, you can hop from universe to universe to, where, like, there is this butterfly effect where somebody's, their eyebrows are a different color of brown, okay, but everything else is the same. But it says that, no. There were only two options for you when you were getting baptized. You either got baptized or you ran away. It's never, we're gonna get baptized, you ran away, and then came back because you thought it was a good idea the next day. It wasn't like you fly to Australia and join the Aborigines,
Kill the priest.
You become a priest, right? There are a million different options, but Bioshock Infinite wants you to says, no, there are only two here, even though clearly we're going to contradict ourselves and say that, it's infinite amounts of universes. Yeah. And also somehow the Lutesses find you, this newly converted dude, and say, we're not gonna hook up with a great, I guess you were in politics, and at some point I think you were visited by a literal angel that told you to, and this is if you're Comstock, you're visited by a literal angel, and told to build the flying city of Columbia, and then you meet up with the Lutesses, fresh off the boat from England, and they don't hook up with like Thomas Edison, right? They don't hook up with like you don't hook up with like J.P. Morgan or any of these people who could finance your anything. You hook up with this preacher politician dude, and somehow you get shit tons of money and build this giant city. Somehow.
Is it like a state?
It secedes from the Union, so they think of themselves as a state.
But their own country, with Comstock as the emperor dude.
Right.
Interesting. I didn't catch that.
Yeah. So, yeah. And it starts out strong, but as I said, it never takes a step upwards. Yep. Until at the very end, where the only character who you are even remotely emotionally invested in, because at the end you're not invested in Slate or Fink or Daisy Fitzroy, right? You're way past caring about them. It has the only person that you care about appear in creepy multiples of themselves and then drown you in a river. The end. Thanks for playing.
Yeah.
Aren't we artsy? Yep. So is that it? Are you exhausted on commentary?
I mean, I think we hit every aspect that we could.
I think so too. I think we got although there's always more. It's an infinite pile of awfulness. Yeah. Anyway, okay, so you can go ahead and stop recording if you want.
Alright.
This has been a presentation of Honey Sound Broadcasting, an affiliate of the Bilko Media Network.